So we'll start the class. Fortunately, Oba and Tunji couldn't talk because they're in transit. Although Oba sent in his own comments. Thanks for that as well. Today we'll be looking at solution evaluation. How we basically evaluate the performance of a solution. And by solution, it means that um, there's a tangible piece of work uh, that represents the design. Excuse me. That represents the design. Since we started the class and up until this point, we've always been looking at how to, understand what stakeholders want, understand what this business needs, understand how to build the solution, right? Understand what developers or technical stakeholders or implementation subject matter experts require from us as business analysts, right? We've tried to look at how to, manage stakeholder expectations, how to work with stakeholders, how to improve or how to develop a strategy and all of that. Now, by the time we'll be able to do all of these things and the business is up and running and there's a solution in place for a problem or for an opportunity that we have been able to identify, our work as a BA don't just stop there. And that is one of the misconceptions that people have about business analysts. They will tell you, if we deploy the projects, if we have delivered the project and we deploy the solution, your work as a BA is no longer relevant because what do we need you for? Or you might start thinking, if I deploy a project, my work as a BA is done and dusted. Why would they want me to be on the team if there's no new project to do? I'll tell you that it's just at that point that your work as a BA even starts, because you now need to bring in your you now need to bring in a higher level of problem solving, a higher level of being analytical to be able to help you improve upon the existing potentials of the solution or the existing performance of the solution. I don't know if you have experienced it in your place of work, if you use one technological software or the other, and sometimes they'll tell you that our system is down or the application is down or whatever. And they'll tell you to give them some time, or they'll have some, specialists or consultants come in, take the system, and then see they'll get back to you to come and redeploy or reinstall or see how to improve upon it, or they want to run an RCA, which is root cause analysis, to find out what the problem is, and bring it up and make the system to come back online. All of these things are effectively possible when we have a business analyst or even a product manager in that particular organization. So when we deploy or when we deliver a solution, we don't just fold our hands and say our job is done. We need to periodically, right, evaluate the performance of that particular solution. Oh, sorry, I titled this today's class strategy analysis, right? That must be that must be an error from my side. It should be solution evaluation. We did strategy analysis last week, right? On Saturday. So today is solution evaluation. So you need to periodically, evaluate that solution to check if it is performing as is expected performance measures, right? And if it is not, how can we get it to perform at its expected level? If it's also performing at its expected level, is there a way we can enhance or improve it to become more efficient or more user-friendly or more profit-yielding? So I'm going to go ahead to share my screen. Do let me know when you can see my screen, okay? Let me know when you can see my screen. And also when you can see my presentations slide.
I can see your screen. Screen's up.
Can you see my slide as well
Yes, sir.
in presentation mode? Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So today we'll be looking at solution evaluation, as I've said earlier on. And there are 4 key things or 5 key things you'll be looking at in solution evaluation. If you open the Babel V3, you see that these are the 3 tasks, these are the key things we do when we want to perform solution evaluation. These are the tasks we carry out. If you've not been able to carry out these tasks, you can't confidently say that you have performed solution evaluation. Number 1 is to measure the performance of that solution. Number 2 is to analyze those performance measures. So you measure the performance and then you get the data, right? You get the data from that performance measure that you've done, right? And then you analyze those performance measures you just collected, the data of those performance measures. And then you assess if there are limitations. You look at possible places the limitation could come from. Could the limitation come from the solution? Or is it that the limitation is coming from the organization, that is the enterprise itself? And then lastly, we recommend actions that stakeholders will need to take in order to increase the value of that solution based on our analysis, based on our findings, right? We recommend actions they need to take so that they can increase the value that that solution is giving to them. So we are going straight into the class to first understand what is solution evaluation. I've given a brief high-level introductory section, explanation, but in a more detailed and structural form, solution evaluation describes the tasks that the BA would need to perform in order to assess the performance of and also the value delivered by a solution in use by an organization, and not just assessing that, but also to go ahead to recommend removal of barriers or constraints that might prevent the solution from realizing its full value, right? While there may be so many similarities to strategy analysis in one way or the other, or requirement analysis, right? We need to know that one thing that distinctively separates or distinguishes solution evaluation from other tasks like requirements analysis or documentation or strategy analysis. One distinct thing there is that for solution evaluation, there is an existing actual solution. When we are doing requirement analysis, there is no existing solution. We are trying to analyze for that solution to be implemented. When we are doing strategy analysis, there is no existing solution. But when we are doing solution evaluation, one key constant is that there is an existing solution in whatever format. And there are different formats we can have an existing solution. Number 1 is at the prototype or proof of concept level. Prototype could be a Figma design prototype, right? At that level, we can perform solution evaluation. And the kind of approach we use in performing solution evaluation is what we call usability tests. We can make use of usability tests to perform solution evaluation on a prototype or proof of concept level of a solution. The next level of a solution is what we call the pilot or beta release phase. Depending on the organization you work in, you could have alpha and beta before commercial. So commercial is where we have operational release or operational phase. It means it is out there for public use. But alpha and beta use and beta phases are phases of a solution where we only have limited number of users on board of it, or limited number of users having access to that solution. For alpha phase or for alpha phase, right, we basically expose the solution or give internal stakeholders access to the solution. That is the pilot phase. For beta phase, sorry, that is the alpha phase. For beta or pilot phase, what we are basically doing in that situation is to expose the solution to friends and family, right? Friends and family of employees, or expose it to a specific segment of customers for them to use based on how we want to control their usage. So some companies call it controlled launch, right? Some people call it controlled launch phase. Some call it beta phase. Other people call it pilot phase. What that means is that for you to be able to have access to that application in the beta phase or controlled launch phase or pilot phase, you might be required to, fill a form for them to maybe send you the application privately or give you a unique code for you to use in assessing the solution. So we can perform solution evaluation at that level of the solution as well. And the third phase we can perform solution evaluation, which is the most popular one, is at the operational level. So we have finished the beta testing and we are fully operational. Anybody can log in or create an account or use the application, the product, without having to request for an access code or an invitation code, as the case may be. So these are the three layers of a solution: the prototype or proof of concept phase, the beta or pilot release phase, and then the operational release phase. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are 5 key tasks that have been performed under solution evaluation. Number 1 is to measure the performance of the solution. Number 2 is to analyze those performance measures we've been able to collect. Number 3 and 4 is to assess limitations, whether it is from the solution or it's from the organization, which is the enterprise. And number 5 is to now recommend actions that we can use to improve the value of that solution. So we'll start by looking at measuring performance measures. I don't know if you have any question on the introduction bit before we head on to measuring performance measures. Sorry, measuring solution performance. Okay, so when we talk about measuring solution performance, right? You agree with me that it's not just about what we do as BAs in tech. Even in manufacturing companies, right? Even in manufacturing companies, let's say those that manufacture tangible products, like a device, like an automobile, right? When these products are being manufactured, we will need to put that product in different conditions, right? Put that product in different conditions. And upon those different conditions, we put the product, or we put that product into testing, right? From the testing period or the testing cycle, we're able to measure some key performance indicators or metrics or success metrics, right, that we have set for the products. Let me give an instance. Let's say if we are manufacturing a tire, an automobile tire, right, Michelin or Pirelli or whatever, and then we are BA. Upon manufacturing that tire, there are some metrics or key performance indicators that must have been put into consideration for us to use to manufacture that tire to that particular specification. For instance, we say that this tire should be durable for up to a certain number of years. This tire should be able to withstand tear and wear in certain level of condition or heat, right? So we set all of those performance measures or metrics. And then when the implementation team, that is the engineering, right? When they pick it up to manufacture that particular new brand of tire, they would look for ways to get the necessary resources and materials to manufacture the tire up to that standard requirements, KPIs, metrics that we have laid out as a BA, right? Now, when they have finished manufacturing that tire will be required to go through several testing for us to measure the performance of that tire. We'll have to do internal testing, right? Internal testing might be put into several conditions on a situation or criteria and then test it. That's internal testing. That's in lab testing. Then the next one is to do external testing. We put it on a car and then drive the car around. If there are conditions that, like those criteria we stated out in our metrics of KPI, we look for environments that we can find those metrics to evaluate them properly. If it means bringing the car down to northern Nigeria or northern Africa where we have high humid temperatures, or taking it to places like Norway or places like Alaska where we have high cold temperature, to measure the performance of that particular tire in such temperature, so that we can know the performance measures, if it is meeting up with the KPIs or with the requirements we have stated as the BA when the tire was about to be manufactured. Now, in measuring solution performance, what we do is to make sure we understand the objectives, which is the KPIs, the metrics, the criteria that we have set, the goals we want to achieve for that particular solution. And then we also need the solution that exists, the physical solution. So when the solution do not have inbuilt performance measures, as I mean, the solution was just implemented out of maybe someone's ideation and conceptualization. Just say, let me implement this solution, or let me manufacture this tire without any performance measures in place. If you are a BA and you are required to come and conduct a solution evaluation on that particular solution, what you need to do is that you have to work with stakeholders to align and also agree on certain performance measures, right? So let's say, for instance, you joined an organization today as a BA and they build a product. Maybe they build an e-commerce product. And when they were building that e-commerce product, there was no business analyst or product manager in the organization. All they have was just that the founder and software developers, they met together and they built the product based on what the founder wanted. Now, upon building that, they now say, we actually need a BA to work with us so that our solution, so that we can enhance on this solution or improve on it, right? When you come on board as a BA, for you to be able to evaluate that solution effectively, you need to first of all start by aligning with stakeholders to agree on set of objectives and set of performance measures for that particular solution. So you work with stakeholders to determine and also collect the measures that will best reflect the performance of that particular solution. Now, once you've been able to do that, the next thing will be for you to now start gathering your performance measures. And to start that, the first thing, as I said, is to define the solution performance measures. In situations whereby no performance measures were defined ahead of time before implementation, you need to work with stakeholders to define the performance measures. But if those performance measures have been defined before implementation and they currently exist, you need to make sure that everyone is aligned on those performance measures. Now, the performance measures could be quantitative measures, numerical or statistical. That's what I mean by quantitative measures. So we can say the system should have a 99.9% uptime. The system should be able to manage at least 10,000 user data without crashing or without breaking or without yielding to failure. The system users should be able to complete each task within 3 clicks. So these are numerical measures. So you define these performance measures and align them with stakeholders. And also we have the qualitative measures. Qualitative measures are basically subjective to you, to maybe attitudes or perceptions and any other subjective responses. For instance, an example of qualitative measures is that the interface should be appealing to users. Now, anybody can have different, understanding on what they think should be an appealing interface. For you, what could be an appealing interface might be different from how a developer interprets an appealing interface or a good interface. And it could be different from how the end user interprets a good interface. So qualitative measures are basically subjective to the perceptions of different stakeholders. They are subjective to the attitude of different stakeholders, but you still need to make sure you define those qualitative measures for the solution, have a team with all stakeholders, and let everyone agree on those qualitative measures they want to track, and also agree on the quantitative measures that you want to track. Upon defining the performance measures, you will now need to validate those performance measures. And in validating performance measure, you will need to ensure that the assessment of the solution performance is as useful as possible. So you will start by making sure that stakeholders agree with the decisions that you have taken about the performance measure, and stakeholders also see the reason for the performance measures you have outlined or selected to use to evaluate the solution. After that, you now collect your performance measures. In collecting your performance measures, you have to define the volume of the samples or the sample size of the performance measure. What do I mean? You might say you want to evaluate the system, the solution on, maybe let me use a quantitative measure now, saying that system should be stable even when there are over 10,000 active customers using the system. The system should not break. There should be no downtime. It should be up and running. So now you can have that as a sample size, 10,000 customers. That is a volume you want to use to evaluate it. You can now choose, I will evaluate with 5,000, evaluate with 8,000, evaluate with 10,000, then evaluate with 10,100, and evaluate with 11,000. So you can choose these 6 data as your sample size, or you can choose to use a larger sample size depending on what works for you as a BA, right? But make sure you don't use too small a sample size, maybe using just 1 or 2 or 3 sample size. Try as much as possible to use minimum of 10 sample size so that you can have a larger number of data to deal with. If you know that you want to evaluate and get much more use of data, especially if you are doing quantitative measures. If you are doing quantitative measures, the larger the sample size, the better for you to the better for your analysis. So if the sample size is larger, the better or the easier it will be for you to do a good analysis. But if you are using qualitative measures majorly, if most of your measures are qualitative, make sure you use at maximum 10 sample sizes or 5 sample sizes or 15 sample sizes, so that you don't run into problems of having a large number of qualitative samples, qualitative data, and you don't know how to analyze them effectively. Still on sample size, you also need to, still on what do you call it now? Still on collecting your performance measure, you also need to select or define the frequency with which you're going to be collecting your performance measure. Are you going to be collecting your performance measure on a daily basis, right? Like, are you going to be evaluating the performance measures on a, sorry, I say evaluating. Are you going to be collecting the qualitative or quantitative data on a daily basis or on a specific period in time? Or do you want to collect your qualitative measures probably on a weekly or monthly basis? So you define the frequency with which you want to collect your data and the occurrence, right? The occurrence, or should I say currency, in the sense that the data you collected today, did that particular stuff occur last week or last month or the previous time when you collected your data? So you need to be able to measure all of that in time so that you have reasonable amount of data to work with. Using qualitative measures as a BA, you can facilitate discussions with stakeholders to estimate the value realized by the solution. That takes us to analyzing your performance measures. And I don't know if you have any question on collecting your performance measures. Do we have any question? Hope I'm audible. I've not been talking for a long time. And can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'll take that there's no question. All right. Now, analyzing performance measures. You've been able to collect all of your performance measures, quantitative measures, and qualitative measures, right? Now it's time for you to be able to analyze those performance measures. And for you to effectively analyze performance measure, you need to be able to know what are the expectations of stakeholders. And that expectation of stakeholders is what we call potential value, right? Analyzing performance measures are done to provide insight into the performance of the solution in relation to the value that it should bring, right? The measures collected often require interpretation and synthesis to derive a meaning and to be actionable. To assist in analysis, variables such as the goals and objective of the enterprise, key performance indicators, the level of risks of the solution, the risk tolerance of both stakeholders and the organization, and others conditions need to be put into consideration. How do we basically analyze performance measures? Number one is we try to compare the performance of the solution against the desired value. We have the KPIs that we have stated for the solution when the solution is being implemented, right? And now we've been able to collect performance measures, either qualitative or quantitative, right, for a period of time. One of the things we now do is we look at the KPIs that have been set, and then we compare it with the results from the performance measures that we got, right? To examine if the result or the outcome of that performance measure aligns or corresponds to the desired value. So a solution might be high performing, such as an effective or efficient online transaction processing system. But if that solution contributes lower value than expected, or compared to what it's expected in the past, then we need to look for a way to, we need to make sure that we highlight all of those areas of expectations from stakeholders, from what we consider to be the desired value, and also what is performance. Let me give an instance. If part of the desired value that stakeholders want to get from the solution is that stakeholders want to be able to process payments successfully, right? Want to be able to process payments, or let me not say successfully, want to be able to process payments using the solution, right? Want to be able to process payments successfully using the solution, right? That is part of the KPIs. But when we measure the performance of the solution, we realize that the solution is actually very efficient. Is processing the payments as expected, but is performing each payment, or is processing each payment twice. So instead of processing the payment once and then return the user to another page, it charges the user twice for every transaction. So yeah, it is efficient, but it is not meeting the desired value or desired expectation from stakeholder, which is for you to process payments singly and not process one payment twice. Or it could be that it processes the payment and then it declines the payment and goes ahead to reverse it. So we need to be able to measure all of those things where necessary. If the measures are not sufficient to help stakeholders determine the value of the solution, as a BA, you might be required to collect more data or treat it as a lack of measures as a solution risk. The next thing we now do is to look at the risks involved. Performance measures may even help us uncover a different or new set of risks, right? And these risks, they need to be identified and managed like every other risk that we have as a BA. You need to be able to identify these risks and recommend ways you can manage the risks. After we've looked at the risks from the performance measures that we've gotten, another analysis we do is to look at the trend. If we have observed an issue, we need to be able to look at the trend with which that particular thing has been occurring. Is it that it is occurring at a certain point in time when the solution is in use? Or is it that it's specific to a certain, is unique to a specific group of users? So you need to know what trends are we observing with our performance data, right? A large enough sample size over a significant period of time will provide us an accurate depiction of the solution performance on which to make decisions and guard against false signals about incomplete data. The next thing we do is to measure the level of accuracy. In measuring the level of accuracy, we also need to make sure we test, analyze, and also analyze the data that we've collected by the performance measure to ensure accuracy. And in doing that, assuming we've been able to collect data at a specific time, maybe we've collected data this month, or sorry, we've collected performance measures for this month. And after collecting these performance measures, we just want to validate that the performance measures we collected are accurate. You see, let's collect it for the first week in next month, and to validate that the measures we got for this month are actually accurate. So we need to be able to see if those performance measures can be reproducible, or if they can reoccur, if they can be repeated when we collect them again. That is it with making sure for accuracy. And the last thing we do is to look at the performance variances. This has to do with the difference between the expected and the actual performance that we have. So remember, at first we compared the performance measures against the desired value. As a result of that comparison that we do at the beginning of our analysis, at the end of our analysis, we should be able to draw out the variances. That is the key differences where there are variances from the expected versus the actual performance measures that we have gotten. Now, I forgot to mention this. There's different tools that we can use to collect performance measures, right? There are different tools we can use today to collect performance measures. Number one is Mixpanel, right? Mixpanel is a popular tool that we can use to collect quantitative performance measures, right? Quantitative and behavioral performance measures. Let me give you guys an example. You see a WhatsApp app that you use today. I love to use WhatsApp because is one application I know everybody has, right? You see your WhatsApp application. Every page on WhatsApp, if I want to collect performance measures on WhatsApp using Mixpanel, right? All that is done is that I will integrate Mixpanel to my WhatsApp. You won't know that I have integrated Mixpanel to WhatsApp. I'm the business analyst or the product manager for WhatsApp. You're not going to know that I've done that integration. All you'll be seeing is to use WhatsApp. But when I do that integration, I will now set up my performance measures, which in product management we call them metrics, right? In business analysis, we call them performance measures. In product management, we call them metrics. Now, I will set up my performance measures on Mixpanel. Are you following me now? When I set up my performance measures, Mixpanel will now help me track and collect that data as people are making use of WhatsApp. So as you're making use of WhatsApp, if part of the performance measures I set up on Mixpanel or metrics that I set up on Mixpanel is that I want to see I want to find the number of time it takes the call button to respond when a user clicks on it. So let's say, for instance, if you click on the call button, will it take 5 seconds before the call screen comes up and then you start making your call the phone starts ringing, right? Or will it take 2 seconds? Or will it take 30 milliseconds? So I want to measure the number of time it takes for the call feature to respond when the user taps on that call button. Once I set that metrics and I tell Mixpanel to track this for me, right, within a month period, Mixpanel, for the fact that I've embedded it on WhatsApp from my own end as a product manager or BA, it will begin to track everybody that taps on that particular button. It will track it, the time with which that button responded, the time with which it took that button to respond. It will be tracking it for every time a user taps on it. And then it will be tracking that data and storing for me. When I want to now get data, all I have to do is just to go on Mixpanel and I will see the data on the number of sample size that's collected, the time it took. I can analyze it as a graph. I'll see all of that on Mixpanel. So Mixpanel is one of the tools that we can use to measure performance, measure solution performance, right? Another one is Google Analytics. You can also embed Google Analytics on your solution, and then you can use it to measure your solution performance, right? We have several of them, but these are like some of the major ones. I've forgotten. There are like 3 that are common in the industry. The third one, the name keeps trying to flash in my brain, but I keep forgetting it. But we have several others in the industry that we use to, gather performance measure data. You don't need to start doing manual work nowadays as a BA to start staying overnight to measure. No, there are tools that you can go. All you need to do is that make sure that you have aligned those performance measures with stakeholders. Everybody agrees that this is what we want to measure. Once everybody agrees that this is what we want to measure, as a BA, if the company is using Mixpanel or Google Analytics or whatever tool, all you need to do is just set up those performance measures. If you don't need to bother about if you can use the tool or not, all these tools, how to use them the videos are available on YouTube. You can go on YouTube, or you can go to their website and you see how to use the application. You will see all of those things. For the fact that you are integrating, that means they have a support person that can guide you through how to use them, right? So you use this tool, you set up these performance measures on the tool, and it will help you to collect the data. Okay. Now, after you have collected the data and you have done your analysis based on the following steps that I mentioned in the previous section, it's time for you to now look at the limitations, assess limitations based on your findings. Most times, if the solution is not performing as expected, it means that there are limitations. And the limitations could come from the solution itself, that is the product, or the system, or the application, or the limitation could come from the organization. So assessment of solution limitation is basically done to determine factors internal to the solution that would restrict the full realization of value. While assessment of enterprise limitation has to do with looking at those factors that are external to the solution, but internal to the organization, that might restrict the solution or restrict the organization from realizing their full value from that particular solution. When assessing solution limitation, we focus on the assessment of those factors internal to the solution only. And this assessment may be performed at any point in time during the solution life cycle. To effectively assess solution limitations, you will need to have a better understanding of the solution that has been implemented, and also the performance measures that you have been able to collect from that particular solution. Now, here are the things that you need to do. Number one is to identify internal components, or should I say features, of the solution. To identify internal solution features or solution component dependencies. Number two will be for you to investigate the problem or the issue that you have observed from the data you collected, from the performance measures you collected. You investigate them. When you have determined that the solution is consistently or repeatedly producing ineffective results, problem analysis is performed in order to identify the source of the problem. There's what we call RCA, root cause analysis. What is done most times is that you can ask the engineering team to pull up or to download what we call a system log. Every system has a log. And that is because every system keeps a log of every instance or action that happens to it. I remember the day that there was a day I told the head of DevOps in my place of work, because something happened and I wanted to investigate what the problem was, where the main source was coming from. And I asked him to help download the logs from the app, right? The app's log for a day. The log that the system kept for a day, which is everything that happened on the system on that day. When he downloaded it for me and then we started looking at it, the way we have entries like rows, lines, row, for just a day, the system kept over millions of rows of logs of what's happened a day. So the system is logging actions in milliseconds. So you can ask them to help you run an RCA, right? You can speak with the engineering team, tell them you need an RCA to be carried out within a specific time frame. Remember, when you are doing your performance measures, you set the timing or frequency with which you are collecting your performance measures. Now, if you actually identify the problem at a specific time, right, from your analysis, you can request for a log, right, as part of your investigation. You request for a log for that particular time so that everybody can know what happened at this point in time that this problem came up. So with that log, everyone can easily understand or identify the root cause of that particular problem. So you can use that as a method or as a technique to investigate the problem of the solution. Business analysts will need to identify problems in a solution or solution component by examining instances where the output from the solution are below an acceptable level of quality or where potential value is not being realized. And then the next thing is for you to now measure the impact. What impact does this problem, does this limitation have on the solution or on stakeholders, right? You will need to review the identified problems in order to assess the effects they may have on the operation of the organization or on the ability of the solution to deliver its potential value, right? Other activities or approaches may include additional quality control measures. You might ask the QA guys to run a test on the solution to see if they can find out that problem as well, or new or adjusted business processes or additional support for exemptions where required. That takes us to the last segment, which is recommending actions to increase the value of the solution. Recommending possible actions to increase the value of the solution. So you have collected your performance measures. You've been able to analyze your performance measures. You've assessed the limitations, whether they are from the organization or from the solution. The next thing now, or to try to the final thing for you as a BA, is to make your recommendations, submit your recommendations. As I used to tell you guys, and also mentioned in the last class, as a BA, most of what we do is to advise the business what to do, advise stakeholders what to do, right? And these advices come as a recommendation, not a suggestion, but a recommendation. So I am recommending that we do this to solve this problem. I'm recommending that let's implement this feature because by implementing it, we'll solve the problem that we have identified. I'm recommending we should retire this feature or retire this solution because the problem will keep on coming. So you may come up with your recommendation, right? And this is done to understand the factors that create differences between potential value and actual value, and to recommend a course of action to align both of them. Recommendations generally identify how a solution should be replaced, how a solution should be enhanced, or even how the solution should be retired. So they may also consider long-term effects and contribution of the solution to stakeholders. Here are the things that we do when we want to, under recommending solutions. The first one is that we can recommend to adjust solution performance measures, right? Because, okay, the performance measures that the solution currently has, they are not really helping the solution. The solution will not end up meeting up with those performance measures. Can we adjust the performance measures and collect data afresh, right? So you can recommend to adjust performance measures and collect data afresh. You can also recommend that nothing should be done. I realize that there's pretty much nothing we can do. Let's say if part of the issues that we identified is that users are finding it difficult to make use of, there's a user experience issue, right? But we see that this is part of our internal controls. Let me give an instance. Someone told me about a system where a point in time whereby they were trying to create an account on a particular application, but they realized that he couldn't continue creating his accounts. And I asked him why. He said because they required me to submit some documents that I don't have. Right? Now, if we and because of that, he stopped the account creation. In product management, we call that churn rates. That is a user starting to perform a task and they did not complete it and they stop. So they drop off. So dropping off from completing a task is called churn. So we can measure that. We can measure the number of the average churn rate, daily churn rate, monthly churn rate, and what have you. Now, in that situation whereby we request customers to submit a government-issued ID for us to open an account for them, and we have large number of our users saying that they don't have that particular government ID. Let's say, for instance, part of the requirements to open a UK account or a GBP account will be for you to have a UK driver's license or international passports. And our customers or users are saying that they are trying to open accounts and they're dropping off. And we measure the data, the performance measures, and we see that so many people are dropping off. And that drop off is during the point of creating accounts. And we ask them and they say, we don't have driver's license, we don't have UK driver's license, that we have international passport. And because of that, we are dropping off. In such scenarios, you can say, come on, we can't do anything in this situation. So let's not do any form of, the solution is fine. So let's not do nothing, because the problem is not from the solution, it's from the users that are making use of it, because we need to make sure we are able to safeguard ourselves from frauds or cyber attacks or whatever that might happen, because some of these documentations are regulatory requirements that every financial institution will need to collect before they can provide an account to a customer. So if you're able to identify such scenarios, you can recommend that nothing should be done. So you can recommend a do nothing as a recommendation. Another one is I can recommend an organizational change. That is when you find out that the problem is from the organization and not from the solution. You can recommend that there is an organizational change. And based on your findings, that will determine what changes within the organization you will be recommending. And then another recommendation we can make could be to reduce the complexity of interfaces. It could be interface of the solution, or it could be external interface. If you realize that there are several external interfaces integrated to our system, and because of that, our system is very slow, it's not fast, we can come up with that recommendation and say, let's reduce the number of external interfaces that are not necessary, right? Or if it is a situation whereby the interfaces are relevant to the solution itself, maybe just to log in, user will need to go through almost 5 pages before they log in, or 4 pages before they log in. You can recommend that, come on, let's reduce the number of screens users will have to interact with whenever they want to log in. And then we can recommend to reduce redundancies. There could be some activities or tasks that users are performing on the solution that is redundant, repeated, or they are not even useful. You can realize that there are some pages on your application or some screens on your application, or even some features that they are not using. You can recommend that let's take away those particular redundancies. Or there are other things that are causing waste, nuisance to the solution. You can recommend that we remove them completely. Or part of your recommendation could be that there are some capabilities now, which is features, right, or functions that the solution does not have. Can we add those capabilities or functions into the solution? So the recommendation could be that you've identified additional capabilities that should be implemented or added to the solution. And the last one, or the last recommendation, or the last type of recommendation you can make will be to retire the solution. Retiring the solution would mean to shelf the solution. It could be that the solution has reached its useful life or shelf life, or it has reached its end of life. So services are no longer, the solution is no longer relevant to users, or the solution is not fulfilling the goals for which it was created for. So this can be as a result of maybe the ongoing operational costs of that solution is way higher than the investments that we are making. Or it could be that over time, the alternative solutions have come up that have made our own solution irrelevant, or have made that solution irrelevant. Or it could be that it is necessary for us to retire that solution because it makes no sense any longer. Or it could be that we are just considering the opportunity cost to pursuing an alternative action, or pursue. Maybe you say, we are really spending a lot of money. Let me give an instance. Last year, for the past 3 years, we've been using a particular core banking solution, right? And they've been billing us £250,000 per annum for using their service. £250,000 per annum. That is the costs they've been charging us for the past 3 years. That means for the past 3 years, we've spent £750,000 on that particular core banking alone. Now, we are able to perform a lot of evaluation and look for a way to reduce costs. And we identify that the best thing we need to do is to retire that particular solution, eliminate that solution completely from our system, and use an alternative solution because of the opportunity cost. And the reason is because the new solution that we are to use, we had to build it internally. And we look at the cost implication. It means that we're going to have new set of developers that would be responsible in managing that core banking. Now, the costs of the resource cost over years, the resource cost for a year is not even up to 50% of the cost of that particular of that old core banking that we've been using for the past 3 years. So by December last year, we were able to cut off our relationship with our core banking, and we have our own in-house core banking that is up and running, and the cost of running it is significantly low. So it could be that an opportunity cost is a reason for you recommending that we retire the solution, so we pursue other alternative, or part of your reason for you recommending that we retire the solution could be as a result of sunk costs, in the sense that the money that we have invested in this solution, we can never recover it. So instead of wasting our time and efforts still using the solution, let's retire the solution and look for something else to do. So that brings us to the end of the session today. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Do we have any question? Okay, Oba said it's fine. Any other person? Okay, Innocent, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I don't have any question. I wanted to just do the same thumbs up. But my hand mistakenly touched.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, boss.
You're welcome. Tunji, okay, and Tunji is at work, so Ikechukwu, do you have any question?
No question. No question. Thank you.
Is the class clear? Or do we really understand what solution evaluation? So if as a BA you are to do a solution evaluation, can you say that from what you've learned today you can do something?
Yes, most definitely. But I had like an influx of a lot of information, so I need to watch the video to really break it down and grasp what you just deliver for us today.
All right, please do well and watch the record. I notice you guys are not watching the recording over and over again, because I try to measure the recording. It's only you guys that have access to the recording. No other person have access to the recording, right? Sometimes I just see that it has been watched only 4 times, and you guys are 4. Make sure you watch the recording over and over again. Do you understand? Where they say repetition makes for emphasis.
Exactly.
Right?
I'll use this break to really watch all those recordings.
Yeah. So go through all the recording. You guys have 1 week up until next week Saturday before we have a meeting to discuss the project. So go through all the recordings and find time to watch them. I'll be giving you guys 6 weeks to 8 weeks. That is approximately 2 months to do your project, right? So that you will calm down and do the project and not rush through it. So it's like an additional 2 weeks to your 3 months subscription. So for your project, okay? So that you have enough time to focus to do required work on your project. But please, during this 1 week break, watch the recording over and over. If you have any question, buzz me, right? I will answer. You can wait to the end of the record. It could be that the question that you had in mind when watching it was answered at the end of the class. But if it wasn't answered or covered, ask me on WhatsApp, buzz me personally, or drop the question on the chat, group chat. I'll respond. Okay? Then try and clear your schedule for the next 6 weeks to 8 weeks so that you can focus on your project. All right? So thank you very much, guys, for your time this very evening. Thanks so much for the classes. I've really enjoyed your cohorts. I really enjoyed your classes, to be fair, to be honest. And that's because you guys are very engaging. And you made the class, you guys helped me in the sense that the class was not a monologue. I remember there are some cohorts that I would take and they don't ask questions. Even when I ask questions myself, virtually everybody don't answer. Only one person that's always talking. So it seems to be like a monologue for me, right? It's the same delivery, the same content, the same time, but it's just that part. They say there's season to everything, right? There's a season to laugh, a season to whatever. So I just felt like, okay, maybe it is just their time, or it's just a specific set of group, right? But your cohorts, your classes have been very, very interesting. I've always been looking forward to, teaching you guys, having these classes with you guys, because you guys have made it more interesting with the intelligent questions you ask, your brilliant contributions and everything. So thank you so much for always joining in class, always participating in class. I really appreciate it when you participate. If you have taught people before, you will see that when people participate in your classes, or if you facilitated the session before, you realize that when people facilitate, you enjoy it more than when you're just the only one talking, right? So thank you so much. I really miss the classroom sessions, right? I really miss the classroom sessions we've had, but we are still here to continue with the project when you guys resume next week, Saturday. All right, till we see next week, Saturday. Have a good night rest. Enjoy yourself. And